Today's notes are going to be over Earth's surface. We got a lot of notes, so bear with me. We're just going to do lesson 1 and lesson 2 today. So let's start by defining Earth's system. Now, hopefully you're starting to recognize this definition already. Earth's system is defined as all of the matter, energy, and processes within Earth's boundary. Now, Earth's system is divided up into 5 main parts. They all function and interact together and work together as a team. These 5 parts are the Geosphere, the Hydrosphere, the Cryosphere, the Atmosphere, and the biosphere. So let's learn a little bit more about each sphere. The geosphere extends from the center of Earth to the Earth's surface and is mostly solid, rocky part of Earth. Now, the geosphere is divided up into 3 layers based on the chemical composition of each layer. It's divided up into the crust, the mantle, and the core. Now, the crust is a very thin, rigid outer layer. It's the very, very edge of the Earth. It's made up of mostly silicate minerals and, of course, oxygen. Now, make sure you put a little star by made up of oxygen because that is a test question that if you recall from your pre-test. Now, the mantle is a hot, slow-flowing, solid rock layer, and it's a little bit more dense than the crust. As you work your way into the core of the Earth, it becomes more and more dense. Which leads us to our last layer, which is the core. It's the densest layer. Again, star that because that's on the test. And it is the center of Earth, and it is made up of mostly iron and nickel. All right, the hydrosphere. Now, the prefix hydro means water, so as you can assume, the hydrosphere includes all water that is on Earth, all liquid water, though. The frozen water is not included in the hydrosphere, that is the cryosphere. Now, 97% of all water on Earth is actually salt water, so majority of our water here on Earth is not fresh water, but rather salt water. The ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface, which is really quite a significant amount. It includes all waters of Earth from rivers, precipitation, groundwater, lakes, etc. And water is constantly moving about through Earth and cycling through. Next, we have the cryosphere, which accounts for that frozen water on Earth. It includes the ice, the sea ice, the glaciers, the icebergs, all kinds of frozen ice or frozen water is included in this sphere. Now, the amount of ice on Earth at a time changes based on the seasons and the affects the climate. So if we have more, ice at one point, it could depend on the season or the climate that we're currently experiencing. Next, we have the atmosphere, which makes up all of the invisible gases that surround Earth. Now, our air is composed of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and then 1% other gases. And the atmosphere is actually broken up into several layers as well, but we're not going to get into all that today. We're just going to talk about the atmosphere being all the gases that surround Earth. This leads us to the biosphere. Now, the biosphere is all living organisms that are on Earth. Now, as you know, organisms need certain things to survive, just like you and I do. We need to have food, water, to survive. So organisms basically need carbon dioxide or oxygen. They need water. They need moderate temperatures, and they need a stable energy source. All right, this concludes lesson 1. Now we're going to move on to lesson 2 in our book, which is weathering. The first type of weathering, there are 2 types of weathering we're going to talk about, is physical and chemical weathering. The first one we're going to talk about is physical weathering. Now, physical weathering is the process by which rock is broken down into smaller pieces by physical changes. Hopefully you're thinking of that hand up, stand up, pair up gesture in your mind right now. There are many causes of physical weathering. It can be temperature changes, pressure changes, animal action, plant growth, water, gravity, wind. All those things can cause physical weathering. Now, note, these are a listed section on your test. You're going to have to be able to list these causes of physical weathering. I believe you only have to be able to list 5, though. And then it leads us to abrasion, which is abrasion is the breaking down and weathering away of rock material by the mechanical action of other rock. Finally, we're left with chemical weathering. Chemical weathering is the breakdown of rocks by chemical reactions. There are 2 major agents of chemical weathering, which is oxygen in the air and oxygen in acids. Now, oxygen in the air goes through a process called oxidation, which is where chemicals combine with other oxygen molecules, and that is a process called oxidation. Now, oxygen in acids is referring to like acid precipitation that breaks down those rocks through that chemical reaction, which is that acid precipitation. All right, we're going to stop there for today in your notes, and we'll continue on later this week.